So there's something I've been pondering a lot recently, and it's probably to do with my age, being a midlife man. But why is it, in your opinion, that so many midlife men feel stuck?
Very good question. And it's one that I pondered myself, being in that position, reaching what I would call a sort of metaphorical crossroads. It's that internal niggle, whichever you can call it what you like. It's that intrinsic sort of feeling, that internal feeling, our intuition, if you like, which we should listen to, that inner voice that tells us that we're not getting any younger, that there's something more. There's an itch we need to scratch, and ultimately, I think it's about purpose. If you have that call to adventure, then ultimately it means that there's something else for you that you want to achieve, maybe a goal. It doesn't have to be leaving a job and opening up a yoga retreat in Bali. It can be small incremental goals, but ultimately people reach a point where they're questioning their worth, their values. Is this it? And they don't understand or know their purpose, and they feel lost. So, and a lot of people, myself included at the time, a few months ago, I hadn't done a huge amount of work into my values and my purpose and my why, my strengths, what gives me energy and excitement. If we're not aligned to those things, we're often left wanting, and things can feel hard. So I think we reach a point where we hit that crossroads, and it's one way or the other. We keep doing what we're doing, or we take a risk and find out what's next.
The only way I can think of it is almost like this intuition, just something gnawing at me, which is kind of saying there's more. And is that what you've experienced personally, but also with your clients? Is it that kind of thing? I'm wondering whether this is something that's happening, or whether there's, I don't know, whether maybe it shows up for different people in different ways.
I think it does. Ultimately, we're all capable of more. I'm super passionate about that, and that's where the name Ask More Coaching came from. And for me, because I now serve the person I was, and I absolutely believe with all my heart that everybody is capable of creating positive change within their lives, whatever that looks like, or even on the smallest scale. And because I did, and that ultimately is what drives me, that push and drive to ask more of myself, to show up, to raise my standards, but also to help other people and show them that it is possible. It's natural. We don't often listen to our intuition. We spend years pushing it down and chasing vanity metrics and other external validation. But when we listen to ourselves, ultimately we have that niggle, like you say, that voice that when we're alone at night, that questions us, and that's where that feeling to ask for more comes from. So it is across the board, but presents itself in different guises depending on where you're at, your physical, financial status as well, your headspace. So
it's interesting. You've sent something there which resonates with me, and you kind of said the words pushing it down. So you had kind of some intuition, and I think the word I got to was suppression. I've just suppressed, just so it was kind of suppressed and forgotten or moved out the way. What is that? Why don't we want to confront, if we get almost an internal alert or alarm saying wake up, like there's this other thing for you, or there's something more for you, why are we suppressing it? Why aren't we just going all in and going after it? What's holding us back?
The societal matrix. We do what we've always done, and we don't challenge the status quo. We don't ask why. We're afraid, and that's all we know. We've been molded to follow a certain structure since we were born, since school. We do things a certain way, and it gives us certain outcomes. And if we break out of that structure, it's unknown. I mean, what if we walk away from our job, if we don't have the house, the car, the material items, if we're not chasing that external validation and the vanity metrics and keeping up with John down the road, then what else do we have? And it's a scary place because it is unknown, but it's not until we challenge that and we take that risk that we get to see there is a life outside of that. So
there is a lot of challenge, I think, because let's just say, right, so if you're a midlife man, you've been in your professional career for 20 years, 25 years maybe, so you've learned life in one way, and you've acquired assets. You know, you've got the house, possibly married, probably have children.
Right.
So now you have a desire. It's not even a desire. Sorry, it's not right. You have a responsibility to people, for mouths to feed, to look after people. But then you might have that internal feeling of, is there more? Like, I'm doing my role as a man in providing, and that's great, and that feels good. But you also kind of know that there's something else out there that maybe you could be greater. And I think it's that moment of going, okay, probably awareness is an issue. Like, I'm becoming aware of this other thing, or maybe awareness of I'm not happy. But then it's about the how. How do I make these steps to progress something forward? And where do I get the belief from that I can be successful in something different? How do you support people? What would be your guidance around if you feel like you've got something gnawing at you and you've got this belief that maybe there's another path? How would you guide someone on that journey?
Self-awareness is key. That's number one. But I think it's identifying who you want to be. Let's explore that. What are your dreams? What are your goals? What's your passion? Who do you want to be in 10 years' time? What does excite you? What does give you energy? Do you know your strengths? Do you know your strengths?
Personally, I think that I'm learning. It's a funny thing, isn't it? Because I think I know my strengths. So, for example, work hard, determined, motivated. It's probably what's made me successful in sales. And the ability to talk to people. And what I haven't realised until recently, it was that probably talking to people with empathy and understanding. And that's probably one of the things that made me successful in sales, is because when I talk with one of my customers or prospects, because I manage a lot in new business, is that I'd sit with someone and listen and understand and ask them a lot of probing questions around their business, what they're challenged with, are they facing these issues, what are their issues, those things. So I think my approach to sales was always to listen first. I created a kind of a framework which I used to coach other people, which was listen, learn, position. Listen first, learn, which means ask questions about the thing you've just listened to, and then position your thing. And the position your thing would be right at the end of the conversation, which is, I think this might be a good way forward for you. So it's taken me time to, one, build the skills, and also now become aware of what those skills are. And in some respects, maybe the talking part, having a chat with someone, is what I'm trying to take into my future, because I feel like that's the bit where I get lost in time. I talk to people all day long, my sales team or customers, and I'm like, oh, I love that. I love that hour. So I feel like they're kind of some of the bits that I'm beginning to be aware of, that are my strengths, which I think are true. And but it wasn't an easy process to really understand what they are. And probably there's lots more untapped stuff which I don't know about. How would you work on that with someone?
Yeah, so we're not taught about those types of things in school or college. We're not taught about our emotions or how to tap into those reserves. And ultimately, if we have a feeling that isn't aligned to the corporate values and structure, then we suppress it, like you said. So it's asking those questions. It is listening. It's who do you want to be? What goals do you have? What adventures do you want to have? What are your business goals, your personal goals, and your adventure goals? What are your financial goals? What do you need to survive and maintain this lifestyle? What can you get rid of that you don't need? Who's coming with you on this? it doesn't have to be, I guess, let me start again. Once we've established that, then we can start putting that strategy in place to help getting people to where they need to be, sharing stories, positioning where we may be able to help. But it's ultimately self-guided, and it starts with allowing yourself to feel, to figure out, do a lot of work with the values, and then aligning your strategy to that. So there's a lot of deep inner work before we start putting in those steps. But for some people, it could be building new habits, healthier habits to help you in your current role around forging a better, healthier mindset. It could be you want to read 4 books, you want to be able to get fitter, faster, and healthier than ever before. Then let's look at ways to create that. It doesn't have to be that foundation will then allow you it will compound and allow you to build to focus on those longer term sort of 1, 2, 3 year goals.
You said something really interesting there, right? I'm going to pick up one word you said, which was to feel. And that's what I think the intuition piece is, to feel that intuition. Why do you feel, or why do you think, let's answer that question differently. Why do you think men struggle with sitting and just feeling?
That's a good question. I think I know there is a stigma around masculinity, what it means. I think it goes back to that societal piece where we're taught that boys wear blue, girls wear pink. We're not encouraged to open up and talk about our feelings. And I think there's that inner belief and mindset in men that you get on with it, that feeling is and showing emotion is a weakness, and that exposes you. And we don't want that, because we need to be the breadwinners. And there's a fear that if we do show that, also that we'll get shut down. But that's where growth happens, by allowing yourself to be open to vulnerability, that you can understand the things that have been holding you back, and understand that drive and that passion to move forwards, to set those strategies up for success, to allow you to grow into the person that you want to be. I'll give you an example, if I may. I struggled for many years to love and accept myself. I didn't know this at the time, but after a lot of deep inner work with my coach, I was pushing people away. I was acting in a way I wasn't accepting of love, and then people wouldn't respond well to me. So I was like, I've just, nobody likes me. I've just proved a point. I'm not worthy of it. And it wasn't until you love and accept yourself, and you accept these things, that you let people in, and you're able to feel and connect with your emotions and show empathy and have some self-worth that builds your self-esteem and confidence, and ultimately let other people, those closest to you, love you and love them back. And for me, I'll be honest, I struggled for years to tell my mum I loved her. And that's maybe an ingrained mindset from, how you grow up, that you got to be tough in the 80s and 90s, and you don't show love. But things are different now. Like with my son, he's got absolutely no problem saying "love you, Dad" in front of his mates. We have a hug every time we see each other, and I've got no problem saying the same. So I think things have shifted, but ultimately there is a stigma that's in place that stops us from really showing ourselves and opening ourselves up.